Hello viewers. Welcome to Seek Wisdom. Today in this video, we present you the summary of the book, The Biology of Belief, written by Dr. Bruce Lipton. The Biology of Belief is a groundbreaking work in the field of new biology. It shows that genes and DNA do not control our biology, that instead DNA is controlled by signals from outside the cell, including the energetic messages emanating from our positive and negative thoughts. It contains a lot of new concepts, so do watch the video till the end. Hope you like it. Let's get started. In school you may have learned the basic components of a cell. The nucleus that contains genetic material, the energy-producing mitochondria, the protective membrane at the outside rim, and the cytoplasm in between. But within these anatomically simple-looking cells is a complex world. Human beings being multicellular organisms, so author believes that we must inherently share basic behavioral patterns with our own cells. Looking at your body from the view of a cell will change your perspective. You are a bustling community of more than 50 trillion individual cells. Even when you remove individual cells from the body and grow them in a culture, they are capable of learning through environmental experiences and are able to create cellular memories, which they pass on to their offspring. Single-celled organisms were the first life forms on this planet. Around 750 million years ago, these smart cells figured out how to get smarter. At first, cellular communities consisted of tens and hundreds of cells. But the evolutionary advantage of living in a community soon led to organizations comprised of millions, billions, and even trillions of socially interactive single cells. A mouse, a dog, a human are, in fact, highly organized associations of millions and trillions of cells. In order to survive at such high densities, the cells created structured environments. These sophisticated communities subdivided the workload with more precision and effectiveness than the ever-changing organizational charts that are a fact of life in big corporations. Unfortunately, we forgot about the cooperation necessary for evolution when Charles Darwin emphasized that living organisms are perpetually embroiled in a struggle for existence. There was another theory put by Lamarck 50 years before Darwin. His notion was that organisms acquire and pass on adaptations necessary for their survival in a changing environment. However, this theory has been mostly ignored or vilified. Biologists are becoming increasingly aware that animals are co-evolved and continue to coexist, with diverse assemblages of microorganisms that are required for normal health and development. Environment has a great impact on the functioning of the cells. They thrive in a healthy environment, while less optimal environment make them faltered. Even sick cells get revitalized when their environment is changed. Old theory has the belief that genes control biology. However, Darwin also in 1876 accepted the role of environment. Of course, there are certain diseases for which we can purely blame the genes, but single gene disorders affect less than 2% of the population. Diseases prevailing today like diabetes, heart disease, and cancer are not the result of a single gene, but of complex interactions among multiple genes and environmental factors. Author explains it with an example. Say you have the car keys. The key shall be required for ignition, but it is you who control the car. Similarly, specific genes are correlated with an organism's behavior and characteristics. But these genes are not activated until something triggers them. And these are activated by a signal from its environment. Cells are made up of 4 types of very large molecules: polysaccharides, lipids, nucleic acids, and proteins. Though the cell requires each of the 4 molecular types, proteins are the most important single component for living organisms. Our cells are an assembly of protein building blocks. So, our trillion-celled bodies can be looked as protein machines. Each protein is a linear string of linked amino acid molecules. Living organisms are distinguished from non-living entities by the fact that they move. The energy driving their movements is harnessed to do the work that characterizes living systems, such as respiration, digestion, and muscle contraction. To understand the nature of life, one must first understand how protein machines are empowered to move. The final shape of a protein molecule reflects a balanced state among its electromagnetic charges. They're shaped like molecular gears in the cells, which mesh with other proteins and form a gear chain and cause rotation. Cells exploit the movements of these protein assembly machines to empower specific metabolic and behavioral functions. The constant, shape-shifting movements of proteins are the movements that propel life. Hereditary information passed on generation after generation is contained in chromosomes, which are incorporated into the daughter cell's nucleus. When scientists isolated the nucleus, they dissected the chromosomes and found that the hereditary elements were essentially comprised of only two kinds of molecules, protein and DNA. DNA molecules are long and thread-like. Those long strings of DNA molecules can be subdivided into single genes, segments that provide the blueprint for specific proteins. So, can be said that DNA controlled its own replication. Based on this, Human Genome Project was started in 1980 to list out all the genetic stars in the human firmament. Scientists concluded that the human genome would contain a minimum of 120,000 genes located within the 23 pairs of human chromosomes. Geneticists experienced a comparable shock when they found that the entire human genome consists of approximately 25,000 genes. The results of parallel genome projects reveal that humans and rodents have roughly the same number of genes. This forced scientists to consider other ideas about how life is controlled. By definition, the brain is the organ responsible for controlling and coordinating the physiology and behavior of an organism. Nucleus, being the largest organelle of cell, was assumed to be the brain. In experiment, it was removed from the cell, and was assumed that the cell should die after removal of nucleus, but it survived. But because without their genes, cells are not able to divide, nor are they able to reproduce any protein parts they lose through the normal wear and tear of the cytoplasm. The inability to replace defective cytoplasmic proteins ultimately resulted in the death of the cell. This showed that brain of the cell was still intact. Then came a revolutionary field in biology called epigenetics. It proved that genes are not destiny. Environmental influences, including nutrition, stress, and emotions, can modify those genes without changing their basic blueprint. And those modifications can be passed on to future generations as surely as DNA blueprints are passed on. In the chromosome, the DNA forms the core, and the proteins cover the DNA like a sleeve. When the genes are covered, their information cannot be read. You need an environmental signal to spur the sleeve protein to detach from the DNA's double helix, allowing the gene to be read. Another important factor is diet. Like in an experiment, when methyl group-rich supplements were given to mice mothers, DNA became silent and gene activity was modified. Based on the research of author, cell membrane is the brain of the cell that controls the cellular activities. Actually, until 1950, before the development of electron microscope, no one was aware of cell membrane, because it was so thin to be seen by a conventional microscope. Cell membrane is made of phospholipids that contain both polar and nonpolar molecules. The nonpolar molecules doesn't allow anything to pass because nutrients are charged. Here comes the role of proteins that get embedded in the membrane called integral membrane proteins that allow movement of only those molecules necessary for the smooth functioning of the cytoplasm. These proteins are further of two types, receptor and effector proteins. Receptors function as molecular nanoantennas tuned to respond to specific environmental signals. Receptor proteins can read physical as well as vibrational signals. This means biological behavior can be controlled by invisible forces, including thought, as well as it can be controlled by physical molecules like penicillin. While the receptor provides an awareness of environmental signals, the response is generated by effector proteins. study found that damaging the membrane of the cell caused its death. Removal of receptor proteins make the cell like brain dead. Membranes' this function of interacting intelligently with the environment to produce behavior makes it the true brain of the cell. Until these, whatever research had been done in medical field was based on Newtonian physics, which cannot offer the whole truth about the human body. There are many other healing techniques like acupuncture, spontaneous healings, prayer, which defy Newtonian physics. These are based on the belief that energy fields are influential in controlling our physiology and our health, which comes under the quantum physics. As per Newtonian physics, atom was the smallest particle in the universe, while as per quantum physics, physical atoms are made up of vortices of energy that are constantly spinning and vibrating. Matter can simultaneously be defined as a solid and as an immaterial force field. Yet even after the discoveries of quantum physics, biologists and medical students continue to be trained to view the body only as a physical machine that operates in accordance with Newtonian principles. The quantum perspective reveals that the universe is an integration of interdependent energy fields that are entangled in a meshwork of interactions. And there exists massive complexity of the intercommunication among the physical parts and the energy fields that make up the whole. Similarly, cellular constituents are also woven into a complex web of communication loops. A biological dysfunction may arise from a miscommunication along any of the routes of information flow. So, when you change the parameters of a protein at one point by using a drug in such a complex pathway, you inevitably alter the parameters of other proteins at innumerable points within the entangled networks. This is the reason why pharmaceutical drugs come with information sheets listing voluminous side effects that range from irritating to deadly. This is the difference between Eastern and Western medicine. Eastern system has honored energy as the principal factor contributing to health and well-being, while Western system is still working based on physical biology. It doesn't mean that biology based on Newtonian physics is not of no use. The difference between the two physics is that quantum mechanics more specifically applies to molecular and atomic realms, while Newtonian laws apply to higher levels of organization, such as organ systems, people, or populations of people. The manifestation of a disease, such as cancer, may show up at a macro level when you can see and feel a tumor. However, the processes that instigated the cancer were initiated at the molecular level. In fact, most biological dysfunctions start at the level of a cell's molecules and ions. Hence there is a need for a biology that integrates both quantum and Newtonian mechanics. Hundreds upon hundreds of other scientific studies over the last 50 years have revealed that invisible forces of the electromagnetic spectrum profoundly impact every facet of biological regulation. These energies include microwaves, radio frequencies, the visible light spectrum, extremely low frequencies, acoustic frequencies. However, these revolutionary findings have not been incorporated into the medical school curriculum. Studies have shown that energy signals are 100 times more efficient and infinitely faster than physical chemical signaling. Prescription drugs only silence a body's symptoms and enables us to ignore personal involvement we may have with the onset of those symptoms. With the help of quantum physics, scanning systems are created that enable scientists to identify the molecular composition of materials and objects. These include CAT scans, MRIs, and positron emission tomography scans. Since atoms are in constant motion, energy signals can interfere with that of atom. This interference can be constructive as well as destructive, like treatment of kidney stones using constructive resonance. The mind arises from the physical body. However, our new understanding of the universe's mechanics shows us how the physical body can be affected by the immaterial mind. Thought energy can activate or inhibit the cell's function, producing proteins via the mechanics of constructive and destructive interference. There are many cases to which conventional biology doesn't have a response. Like ancient religious practice of walking on fire, without getting harmed, while large numbers of individuals that have been infected with the AIDS virus for decades do not express the disease. We have two independent subdivisions of mind, conscious and subconscious. The conscious mind is the creative one, the one that can conjure up positive thoughts, while the subconscious mind is a repository of stimulus response tapes derived from instincts and learned experiences. The subconscious mind is strictly habitual. It will play the same behavioral responses to life's signals over and over again and is millions of times more powerful than the conscious mind. As the life started with single-cell organisms, which during evolution become complex multicellular organisms. As more complex animals evolved, specialized cells took over the job of monitoring and organizing the flow of the behavior-regulating signal molecules. The brain's function is to control the behavior of the body's cells. The conscious mind not only reads the flow of the cellular coordinating signals that comprise the body's mind, it can also generate emotions, which are manifested through the controlled release of regulatory signals by the nervous system. Being endowed with the ability to be self-reflective, the self-conscious mind is extremely powerful. It can observe any programmed behavior we are engaged in, evaluate the behavior, and consciously decide to change the program. But this ability comes with a pitfall. While almost all organisms have to actually experience the stimuli of life firsthand, the human brain's ability to learn perceptions is so advanced that we can actually acquire perceptions indirectly from anyone, say teachers. Even if the perceptions of the teachers are inaccurate, we tend to believe them. Consequently, programmed misperceptions in our subconscious mind are not monitored and will habitually engage us in inappropriate and limiting behaviors. Therefore, we would be more accurate to refer to these controlling perceptions as beliefs. Beliefs control biology. From this comes placebo effect. When patients get better by ingesting a sugar pill, medicine defines it as the placebo effect. Many experiments have shown that when patients are given fake treatment, they show well improvement like an actual treatment. The result is only due to their belief of getting treatment. While the impact of positive beliefs was improvement of health, similar impact is there of negative beliefs that can not only make you sick, but can kill you. This is called nocebo effect. If your doctor has told you that you will not survive more than 6 months, you are not likely to have much more time on this earth, because that belief has entered your subconscious mind. Our positive and negative beliefs not only impact our health, but also every aspect of our life. While we cannot readily change the codes of our genetic blueprints, we can change our minds. Learning how to harness your mind to promote growth is the secret of life. Teachers like Buddha and Jesus have been telling us the same story for millennia. Now science is pointing in the same direction. It is not our genes but our beliefs that control our lives. Evolution has provided us with many survival mechanisms which can be classified in 2 categories: growth and protection. To understand how growth is essential for survival, take example, the entire cellular lining of your gut is replaced every 72 hours. In order to maintain this continuous turnover of cells, your body needs to expend a significant amount of energy daily. However, our body cannot exhibit 4 configurations of growth and protection at the same time, means growth behaviors are restricted when shifted to protective mode. The longer you stay in protection, the more you compromise your growth. So, to fully thrive, we must not only eliminate the stresses but also actively seek joyful, loving, fulfilling lives that stimulate growth processes. Protection system is further of 2 types. First is for protection against external threats. This is done by hypothalamus and pituitary gland by releasing adrenaline into blood. In such situation, blood vessels of the digestive tract get constricted, forcing the energy-providing blood to preferentially nourish the tissues of the arms and legs that enable us to get out of harm's way. The visceral organs stop doing their life-sustaining work of digestion, absorption, excretion, and other functions as they didn't get enough blood nutrition. The body's second protection system is the immune system, which protects us from threats originating under the skin, such as harmful bacteria and viruses. Under the effect of adrenaline, even immune system is suppressed to conserve energy reserves. Today we live a hypervigilant lifestyle that is severely impacting the health of our bodies. Our daily stresses are constantly activating the stress glands, priming our bodies for action. The stresses in our bodies are not released from the pressures generated by our chronic fears and concerns. Almost every major illness that people acquire has been linked to chronic stress. Studies found that a patient taking antidepressants take around 2 weeks to get better, because depressed people exhibit a surprising lack of cell division in the region of the brain. Drugs take time to balance for this lack of growth of cells. This growth is inhibited due to presence of stress hormones leading to depression. So, examine how your fears and the ensuing protection behaviors impact your life. What fears are stunting your growth? Where did these fears come from? Are they necessary? Are they real? If we can control our fears, we can regain control over our lives. Letting go of our fears is the first step toward creating a fuller, more satisfying life. Next comes the role of parenting. Parents have overwhelming influence on the mental and physical attributes of the children they raise, not after children are born, but before children are born. The fetal and infant nervous system has vast sensory and learning capabilities and have a pre-birth life in the womb that profoundly influences their long-term health and behavior. Programs susceptibility to coronary artery disease, stroke, diabetes, and a multitude of other conditions in later life. Understanding the mechanisms that underlie programming by the quality of life in the womb, we can improve the start in life for our children and their children. In so doing, they act as genetic engineers for their children. Human beings are more dependent on learning for survival than other species. We have no instincts that automatically protect us and find us food and shelter, except few innate behavioral instincts. Evolution has endowed our brains with the ability to rapidly download an unimaginable number of behaviors and beliefs into our memory. Ongoing research suggests that a key to understanding how this rapid downloading of information works is the brain's fluctuating electrical activity as measured by electroencephalograms. Between birth and 2 years of age, the human brain predominantly operates at the lowest frequency of 0.5 to 4 cycles per second, which is delta waves. Between 2 to 6, frequency is 4 to 8 Hz, known as theta. Delta and theta are more suggestible, programmable state. This means children up to 6 years can download the incredible volume of information they need to thrive in their environment. Studies show that the fundamental behaviors, beliefs, and attitudes we observe in our parents become hardwired as synaptic pathways in our subconscious minds. Once programmed into the subconscious mind, they control our biology for the rest of our lives. Now imagine the consequences of hearing your parents say you are a stupid child, you do not deserve things. Subconscious mind is much more powerful than conscious mind. As per the latest research, parents should be conscious from the months before they conceive a child. That growth-promoting awareness and intention can produce a smarter, healthier, and happier baby. In the final stages of egg and sperm maturation, a process called genomic imprinting adjusts the activity of specific groups of genes that will shape the character of the child yet to be conceived. If mother is under stress during pregnancy, activating her pituitary gland and adrenaline, this modifies fetal nephron formation and switches the mother's and the fetus's system from a growth state to a protection mode. As a result, the growth-inhibiting effect of excess cortisol in the womb causes the babies to be born smaller, that develops higher risk of cardiovascular disease. Children need parents who can playfully foster the curiosity, creativity, and wonder that accompanies their children into the world. Obviously, What humans need is nurture in the form of love and the ability to observe older humans going about their everyday lives. Let go of unfounded fears and take care not to implant unnecessary fears and limiting beliefs in your children's subconscious minds. Most of all, do not accept the fatalistic message of genetic determinism. You can help your children reach their potential, and you can change your personal life. You are not stuck with your genes. Take heed of the growth and protection lessons from cells, and shift your lives into growth whenever possible. And remember that for human beings the most potent growth promoter is not the fanciest school, the biggest toy, it is love. Here we shall wind up the video. If you like this video, give a thumbs up. Share it with your friends. We love to have your comments on our efforts. Subscribe this channel for more such videos and hit the bell icon to get notified about the latest updates. Be happy, be safe.